Hi, my name is David Dolch. My book is Classroom Management That Works by Robert J. Marzano. The main idea in this book is that effective teachers are made through effective classroom management techniques. This book concentrates on mainly the teacher and provides action steps to apply effective classroom management. The four main points I'll be going over today in the classic classroom management includes rules and procedures, disciplinary interventions, teacher-student relationships, and mental set. Other areas of focus are students' responsibility for management, methods for getting off to a good start, and school management. Rules and procedures. Classroom rules and procedures usually involve different ways that students can get along in a peaceful environment. It includes different transition periods throughout the day where the materials are stored. Students should be involved in helping to establish these rules and procedures. Some action steps include specific rules and procedures for your class, or identify specific rules. Involve students in the design of rules and procedures. General classroom behavior is outlined in rules and procedures. These rules should be implemented from bringing materials to class, being in the assigned seat at the beginning of class, respecting and being polite to others, talking or not talking at specific times, leaving the assigned seat, respecting other people's property. Beginning of the school day or beginning of the period is when these rules should also be looked at. Some of these rules include taking attendance at the beginning of the period. At the beginning of the period, addressing the students who missed the work from the previous day because of absence. Dealing with students who are tardy at the beginning of the period. Ending the period with clear expectations for homework. Some other rules and procedures would be transitions and interruptions. Examples of these would be rules for students leaving the room, rules for returning to the room, fire and disaster drill rules, and split lunch period rules. Some other rules that were mentioned in the book have outlined the use of materials and equipment. These rules would be distributing materials, collecting materials, storage, and common materials. Rules for storage and common materials. Continuing on, we have group work. Some rules were movement in and out of the group leadership and roles in the group, the relationship of the group to the rest of the class or other groups in the class, group communication with the teacher, seat work and teacher-led activities. These rules include students' attention during presentations, rules for student participation, talking among students, obtaining help, out-of-seat behavior, and behavior when work has been completed. Some important teaching ideas that I got. An idea was from the general classroom behavior rules. This example in the book was a 9th grade teacher she used poetry to summarize the general classroom behavior expectations for her class, and I thought that was a neat idea, and I'm going to try implementing that in my class. Disciplinary interventions is the second effective classroom management topic covered in the book. In establishing different disciplinary interventions, there should be positive and negative consequences. Having only negative consequences fails to motivate students. Instead, providing positive consequences for positive behavior promotes a healthier classroom environment. Students and teachers should establish clear limits so that students know when to expect consequences. The action step for this are to employ specific techniques that acknowledge and reinforce acceptable behavior, and acknowledge and provide negative consequences for unacceptable behavior. Establish clear limits for unacceptable behavior, and an effective system to record these behaviors. Teacher reactions. Make eye contact with an offending student by moving closer to the student. This is a subtle but powerful way of alerting a student to that he or she is misbehaving. Use physical signals such as a finger touch to the lips or shake of the head to indicate that a given action is inappropriate. If a student is not following a procedure, provide the student with a simple verbal reminder. Do this privately and subtle. You might also state the expected appropriate behavior. If a student doesn't respond to the more subtle interventions, simply tell the student to stop the inappropriate behavior. Tangible recognition, continuing on here, this is a reward for to recognize the student for acting appropriate. Direct cost is applied with negative consequences. Examples include isolation, timeout, or overcorrection. Isolation is the removal of a student from the classroom for disruptive behavior. Overcorrection may be applied by making a student straighten out the desks if the student placed his desk in an incorrect formation. More on disciplinary interventions, group contingencies. There's interdependent group contingencies and dependent group contingencies. Independent group contingencies require every student in the group to meet the criterion for the group to earn credit. Independent group contingencies requires a specific student or a specific group of students in the group to meet the criterion for everyone to earn credit in the group. Home contingency. This involves making the parents aware of the positive and negative behaviors of their children. This might come in the form of a phone call, a letter, or a visit, or discussion in meetings. Some important teaching ideas from interventions. About every 10 to 15 minutes, catch a student being good, give the student a compliment, softly allowing the conversation to be private. I thought this was a really good idea. Another idea is to have students keep a chart that has columns listed for date, goals for the day, self-assessment, and on task. This method is to keep track of student behavior and can be used for tangible recognition. Continuing on, the third aspect of effective classroom management is teacher-student relationships. It's important when developing teacher-student relationships that students know that the teacher is the one in charge. At the same time, students need to know that they have a voice in the classroom and their needs are very important to the teacher. Action steps include specific techniques to establish an appropriate level of dominance in the classroom. Use specific behaviors that communicate an appropriate level of cooperation. Be aware of the needs of different types of students. Exhibiting assertive behavior is one of these. Use assertive body language, making and keeping eye contact, maintaining an erect posture facing the offending student but keeping enough distance so as not to appear threatening, matching one's facial expression with the content of message being presented to the students. Use appropriate tone of voice, speaking clearly and deliberately, using a pitch that is slightly but not greatly elevated from normal classroom speech, avoiding any indication of emotion in one's speech. Persisting until the appropriate behavior is displayed, ignoring an inappropriate behavior, not being diverted by a student, denying, arguing, or blaming, but listening to legitimate explanations. You can also, with teacher-student relationships, a part of this is establishing learning goals. Establish learning goals at the beginning of the unit of the instruction, providing feedback on those goals, continually and systematically revisiting the goals, providing summative feedback regarding the goals. Also, providing flexible learning goals as part of teaching student relationships. Taking a personal interest in students is part of this as well. This includes talking informally with students before, during, and after class about their interests, greeting students outside of school, singling out a few students each day in the lunchroom and talking to them, being aware of the commenting on important events in student lives, complimenting students on important achievements in and outside of school, meeting students at the door as they come into class and saying hello to each student, making sure to use his or her first name. Also, teacher-student relationships, there's another aspect is using equitable and positive classroom behaviors. This includes making eye contact with each student in the room, freely moving about all sections of the room. Over the course of a class period, deliberately moving toward and being close to each student, making sure that the seating arrangement allows you and the student clear and easy access to move around the room. Also, attributing the ownership of the ideas to the student who initiated them. Allowing and encouraging all students to be part of class discussions and interactions, making sure to call on students who do not commonly participate, not just students who respond most frequently. Also providing appropriate wait time for all students regardless of their past performance or your perception of their abilities. Another aspect of teacher-student relationships is responding appropriately to students' incorrect responses. So emphasize what was right, encouraging collaboration, restating the question, rephrasing your questions, giving hint cues, and providing the answer and asking for elaboration. If a student absolutely cannot come up with a correct answer, providing it for him and then asking him to say it in his own words or providing another example of the answer. And also respect the student's options to pass when appropriate. Be aware of these needs of different types of students is the second step, action step in teacher-student relationships. Students that you should be aware of are labeled as passive, aggressive, attention problem students. Passive students are either fear of relationship or they have fear of failure. Aggressive students could be of hostile, oppositional, or covert. Attention problem students are either hyperactive or inattentive, and recognizing these is very important. Also, there's perfectionists. Perfectionists are driven to succeed at levels that are unattainable. They are self-critical, have a low self-esteem, and have deep-seated feelings of inferiority and vulnerability. Socially inept. They have difficulty making and keeping friends. Sometimes they may stand too close, talk too much, make embarrassing remarks, misread other comments, and don't fit in. Mental set is the last aspect of classroom management. Teachers need to display emotional objectivity when providing negative consequences for inappropriate behavior. Equally as important, a teacher needs wittiness. Wittiness is ability to spot behavioral issues quickly so that the situation doesn't escalate. So the two action steps are wittiness and emotional objectivity. For mental, let's see here. For mental set, reacting immediately. Walk around the classroom. Make sure that you spend some time in each quadrant. Periodically scan the faces of the students in the class. As you scan the classroom, pay particular attention to the incidents or behaviors that look like they could turn into problems. Make eye contact with those students involved in the incidents or who are exhibiting the behavior. If the student doesn't work toward the students, if the behavior or incident continues, say something to the students, keeping the comments as private as possible. Also, there's forecasting problems. Mentally review what might go wrong with specific students. Make mental notes of students that are aggressive, passive attention problems, etc. Observing a master teacher. You can observe a master teacher, take notes on what he does that's effective, and also have a conversation with him after, with the teacher after, to get valuable feedback. And the last slide here is looking for reasons why. Reframing. Don't personalize a student's behavior. The focus isn't always on you. And monitoring your own thoughts before class each day. Make a mental review. Try to imagine these problems students succeeding or engaging in positive classroom behavior. In other words, try to replace your negative expectations with positive ones. And when you interact with these students, try to keep in mind your positive expectations. Thank you for listening to my slides on this book, Effective Classroom Management by Jay Marzano. I'm David Dolch. Again, what I did today was go through all the 4